Oh, hello, Kumit. I was kind of waiting for you because I got the impression you wanted to say something. Um, I guess I have a few things to say about the way forward. I was thinking I'm going to repeat myself and say that I still think the solution is simple and easy if only people would do what they're supposed to do. What are people supposed to do? They are supposed to be able to discuss things with each other. Because they have language and they have education and they have social media and they have, in theory anyway, the ability to discuss ideas, and this is what they should do. And I'm saying if enough people discussed their idea of truth, of logic, of morality, and didn't stop discussing it until the matter was resolved, then we would get somewhere. But I get the impression that people talk without necessarily seeking resolution. They are undergoing an exercise that I would regard as phatic, spelled PHATIC, and it means making sounds for the sake of it. We have emphatic expressions such as "How are you?" but really not really interested in the response. We're saying things like hello and goodbye. I guess to show politeness and goodwill, but these are phatic. They don't mean anything, they don't add to the conversation, and we need to have genuine conversations about what we think is wrong, what we think is right, what is a problem, what is a solution, and that sort of thing. And with very, very few exceptions, people just make noises on social media. The worst culprits are middle class intellectuals in academia who seem to be employed for the sole purpose of wasting the time of their listeners. Good to see you, Christine Ramsey. You're saying that you think the solution is to send them all back, but this is an old solution and becoming increasingly unviable because of the measures that your government has taken, basically to um, import immigrants and give them passports almost as soon as they arrive, so that they will always outvote the indigenous. So this is how they do it, and I think as long ago as whenever it was that what's his name Breivik did what he did in Norway. Well, he said in his manifesto that he only did what he did when he realised what the Norwegian government was up to, and he knew he was never. Well, people like him were never going to win, and that is why he did what he did. And then he was, they tried to diagnose him as insane, but he didn't want that. So basically, what the mass murder he committed took place in July 2011. And what was unusual about him was that he didn't kill Muslims and the non-whites. He killed the people in the party who voted, who kept bringing them in. So he's interesting because of that, because he obviously he thought about it and was trying to make his point. Now, I'm saying we don't have to do anything like that. There is no need to commit violence or even vote. In fact, but if you do vote, please spoil your ballot papers, because what would be great is if there were more spoiled ballot papers than there were votes for either Labour or Conservative. That would be such a great fuck off gesture. So if you people could manage that, that would be great, and it would be peaceful, and and they'd get the message, and because spoiled ballot papers are counted in the UK. But I also discovered that spoiled ballot papers are not counted in America. So this is something for Americans to consider, because I was just talking about them yesterday, and it is clear that they do not really have much of a choice as regards US foreign policy. It's neocon Biden and neocon Trump. Now, some people have said Trump is not as much as a neocon as Biden and the others, and although he did give orders to kill Soleimani, he well, that was the worst thing he did. He didn't start another war. He's been saying aggressive things about China and Israel, but we don't know. We don't know if he really means it, or is having his hand forced. But we still have time to keep asking, or Americans still have time to keep asking him what his foreign policy position on Israel is. So I haven't really checked what his latest position is. The last time I heard the subject being discussed was he was keeping very quiet about US foreign policy, but Americans, especially Trump voters, must not let Trump get away with it. It is very important for them and the rest of the world that they hold the presidential candidate accountable for foreign policy. So I guess the worst thing could happen to the Americans is that Trump says he's not a neocon. He says he will bring peace, but and we all know that presidential candidates all campaign in peace and govern in war. And if he's going to break his promises like Obama did, because I remember Obama saying no more war, peace, peace, peace. Soldiers back from Afghanistan, and then when he was voted in for a second term, he sent more. So, but even that is helpful. Okay, it's helpful because then the American people, Trump supporters in particular, Trump voters would say, well, what do you expect us to do? We did vote for an anti-war presidential candidate, and he lied. And when he was elected into office, he started another war. He started, even worse, the Third World War. And after that, the reputations of Westerners will be mud, and democracy will be officially labeled dementia, and nobody will take anything a Westerner says seriously again. So that is the danger for Westerners. And I want you to know that I understand the worst case scenario. World War III breaks out. Trump voters vote for Trump. He wins, and then he starts another neocon war that results in the Third World War. Um, but I'm not recommending violence. I'm saying there's plenty of time for Americans to ask themselves whether they want to be known as a country that started the Third World War. Is that what they really want? And if not, who can they vote for? Do they really have a choice? I suppose they're going to be asking, oh, well, what about the actually how we don't even know how many presidential candidates there are. I don't even know when it's finalised. So I'm thinking there will be candidates from other parties. Oh yes, I'm looking up. Presidential Ballotpedia. And it was Ballotpedia who told me that Americans do not even have the option, as the British voters do, of spoiling their ballot papers because it's just not counted. So even if all the Americans thinking of voting thought, we want to show that we reject representative democracy by spoiling our ballot papers, they wouldn't be able to do that. So the best option for them is to put Trump on trial and keep asking him, are you going to start another war? So when will the candidates come in? Okay, I don't know when. Because I've got a list of registered presidential candidates and possible presidential candidates. So it's not finalised. I don't know when it's going to be finalised. Let me look at. Maybe Wikipedia will make it easier. Finalised. Important dates in the 2024 presidential race. Final deadlines and requirements. I think that's what I want. Oh, I can't actually work out when. Okay, I don't know. Forget it. I there's too many tables and stuff. I can't work it out. But anyway, as far as the American voters are concerned, they have to be very careful because if World War III breaks out, the reputation of America will be mud because they'll be known as being part of the Anglo-Saxon Empire that has started 3 world wars. And they will be known as, well, really the worst people in the world, starting 3 world wars after acquiring 3 global empires. And it's not like they can even be economic migrants, fleeing America because nobody would hire them. I guess, the worst case scenario for white people, if there are survivors in a nuclear holocaust, would be they'd just be hunted down and shot, I think, for being the people who started 3 world wars. I mean, assuming we have guns and people left to shoot white people for starting 3 world wars and, causing untold harm to the environment. So I'm saying, white people, please have a care and have a think about your white identity, your white political system, your white political ideology and your supposedly white religion called Christianity, which really has just failed and failed and failed and failed. And I've been saying, look, Constantine the Great adopted Christianity in order to prevent the decline and fall of Rome. And what happened? The decline and fall of Rome. And it's not me saying that Christianity caused the decline and fall of Rome. It was Edward Gibbon, the historian, who wrote volumes and volumes and volumes about the decline and fall of Rome. And anyway, we know what happened. Constantine founded the Catholic Church, and it didn't prevent the decline and fall of Rome, and Europeans still didn't get it after the fall of Rome. I suppose to be fair to them, I mean there wasn't much else around. Islam wasn't established until the 7th century, and let me just check when Rome fell. It was the 5th century, wasn't it? The fall of Rome. Fall of the Western Roman Empire. Dates. Yeah, they're being a bit vague about the dates because nobody. Yeah, I mean, some people have said, it wasn't like Rome was invaded. The barbarians just walked in. Which kind of reminds me of how boat people and other people are just walking in. Okay, so it was a 5th century. I'm just scrolling down the Wikipedia entry, and it seems to be, 476 was the final fall. I guess, all the other incidents before there was, Rome, doddering around and banging into things and tripping and just about recovering. But 476 was when Rome fell flat on its face. But anyway, the Catholic Church remained, and Christian missionaries were sent to other parts of Europe, to the barbarian kings of Britain and France and all the other places, and they became Christianized, and Europe became Christendom, a continent of Christian kingdoms. But we also have to acknowledge that Christendom ended in 1918. So if you were an absolute monarch, you would have to ask for your money back. Well, if the thing is, it's all mixed up, isn't it? If it was a Catholic Church, then I guess these Christian monarchs would have to ask for their money back from the Catholic Church, but actually they were Protestants. Just let me check the fall of Christendom. So the fall of Christendom was, obviously the Orthodox Church, the Russian Orthodox Church failed. The Kaiser had to abdicate, and he was Lutheran. I think he was Lutheran or either Prussian State Church or something like that. The Austrian Empire, the Austrian Emperor, the last one, I think he was Catholic, wasn't he? Emperor of Austria. So the last one was Charles I, last to reign. I'm scrolling down Wikipedia, so I don't know what kind of Christian he was. He must have been Catholic, I guess. I will have to word search his religion. Religion does not appear at all. Word search Catholic. Okay, I have to actually just type it. What was the religion of the last emperor of Austria? Yeah, Catholicism. So, yes, I guess Franz Joseph could have sued the Catholic Church, asked for his money back, but anyway, he's over and out. So we also know that the Protestants won the wars of the Reformation in 1898 when the Protestants in America kicked out the Catholics, the Spanish who were Catholic, from the Americas. So that was what happened, and that was the beginning of WASP supremacy. I don't have any questions in the chat, but I'll read the comments, I guess. Would I vote for Nigel Farage? I've already said I can't vote, other than because to vote would show that I still care about that I'm participating in representative democracy, and I don't feel that to do that, because I feel that to do that would contradict my message of rejecting representative democracy. So I would recommend that everybody in the UK would spoil their ballot papers to show their rejection of representative democracy, and that would include rejection of the Reform Party. So Gandalf, you sound American. So Kumit is American, and he says, why would the future me care about the past? Well, isn't what happened to you part of your identity? I mean, yesterday I was having this conversation with Jim Bouton, and he was going on and on and on about the Christian culture of the West, and cathedrals and churches and architecture and that kind of thing. And what happened to you? You can't really reject, because, well, stuff has happened to you, and it is part of your experience, your memory, your knowledge, and I don't see how you can forget about it. But what we're talking about is the present and the future, and what we are to do with within our capacity. So I'm saying, we are capable of rational thought, I hope, and rational thought would be about distinguishing truth from falsehood, and what is a valid argument from what is a sound argument, and preferring the sound argument to the merely valid argument, and of course rejecting the invalid argument, which is another way of saying the illogical argument. And what happened to you is part of your identity, which you really cannot. You can't reject it. I mean, you can't reject your parents, and but the childhood you had, and your background, and your genetics, and your race, and nationality, and all the things that you inherited from your parents. You can't really reject it because they were part of your formative experiences, and will have an effect and influence on how you think, either consciously or subconsciously. So that's not something you can forget about. And I'm not proposing forgetting about the past. I'm saying we have to, if something bad has happened, we have to accept that it happened, and we're going to fix things, or get over things that we can't fix. So, but we still need to know, if something did indeed happen to us, and because that's part of our individual and group identity. So were you in the UK recently, Gandalf? Kumit says, Rome sacked Carthage. I don't hate Rome. In fact, I kind of like them. I don't hate Rome either. Why would I hate Rome? The cities and towns look like shit, but not all. The new towns look like shit, but you'll find a few nice cathedral cities. When did Islam fall again? Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, its biggest, most recent fall was the Ottoman Empire I think it was dismantled in 1922. So Kumit asks about the ethics of empires. Why should any empire be ethical? And I'm saying, if you want to run an empire, okay, let's define successful imperialism. You want to be so successful that your subject peoples are happy that you conquered them, and think, well, it was a good thing that we were conquered by the Romans, because look how civilized we are with our Roman baths and Roman villas and all the the pretty mosaics, and and Roman law, and Roman order, and that kind of thing. So we know that the ancient Britons were sad when the Romans left, and they said, please don't go and leave us to the Dark Ages. Please come back. And but the Romans had to go because there were just so many Roman soldiers stationed in Britain that the leader of the Roman Legion in Britain, was it the Roman army? The Roman army in Britain was just so big that he would become a major player if he took all his troops back to Europe to fight whoever it is he needed to fight to become the Emperor of Rome. So that was the importance of Britain, for the Roman internal military political reasons. So when there was big trouble in Rome, all the Roman troops in Britain had to be withdrawn, and the British left to fend for themselves against the Vikings, etc. And that was the Dark Ages. So Rome is obviously, part of European history, and they left many, beautiful monuments, including Latin and their legal system, which is, pretty sophisticated, and so we should study it and understand it and see how Rome was successful and why it failed, and that was why Edward Gibbon wrote reams and reams and reams about the decline and fall of the Roman Empire, and people now cannot even agree. I would say that Edward Gibbon must be right about the reasons. I mean, if you're just going to, well, some people might say, be superficial about it, Constantine the Great did not convert his empire to Rome, to Christianity, for the fun of it. It's not like a woman buying a new dress or accessories to her new dress. It was obviously a very traumatic thing, to even begin to realize that the imperial cult was failing and Rome was breaking up into different regions run by different warlords, and that was what they were. They were warlords. So, obviously the people who were most powerful would be the army and leaders of soldiers, and that was why they kept fighting. And Constantine thought, well, if we keep fighting, it would be the end of us, and we have to find a way to, agree about things. And Christianity was the biggest idea around, and so he adopted it. And my point is that if Islam had been around, Constantine would not have looked twice at Christianity. And I am also saying that nobody can prove me wrong on that, because we know that Constantine spent a lot of time doing lots of things to make Christianity respectable, because it wasn't. I mean, there are many Roman references to Christianity being the religion of women and slaves. All that the meek will inherit the earth, and that sort of thing. And it was certainly not a religion for men, because the whole thing was so stupid, right? Until Constantine decided that all his subjects needed a new religion, and he used Christianity, and it didn't work. But anyway, it didn't stop the barbarian kings of Europe adopting it, because there was nothing else around, and obviously they were seduced by the glamour of the eternal city that is Rome. So they adopted it, but I suppose things went well for a while, until these barbarian kings got themselves a bit of an education after a few generations, learning Greek and Latin and history, and having ideas of their own about how their kingdoms should be run, and coming up against the Pope, who was saying no to almost every important thing they wanted to do. And the most important of which for the English king was who he was allowed to divorce and marry. And so Henry VIII decided to become his own pope. And this raised serious issues about the separation of powers. So if you know a bit of Jewish history, you will know that the Hasmonean dynasty, who also crashed and burnt, had an issue with the separation of powers, because the idea was that the priest can never be the king. And the Hasmonean dynasty, I forget which king it was now, broke this rule and crashed and burnt. And Henry VIII was doing the same thing. But he thought he got away with it by saying, well, I'm not going to be my own Archbishop of Canterbury. I'm going to, well, appoint a separate Archbishop of Canterbury to do it. And this way create the illusion that there is separation of state. But obviously, whenever the Archbishop did anything wrong, he would be charged with treason or heresy and be burnt at the stake. So really, the king was the one in charge, and he didn't really listen to the priest. Because the whole idea of the priest is that the priest says, God says this, or and therefore you should, king, you should do this, or you shouldn't do that. But maybe the king got angry. Well, usually he gets angry at people who tells him things he doesn't want to hear, and he can have them executed or at the very least removed from their positions. So Kumit, you're talking about the superiority of Christian architecture. Have you visited any Muslim country, or are you just looking at mosques in America? I mean, I don't think you can expect them to be particularly nice buildings being built by immigrants. So it would be, I guess, temporary utilitarian buildings that just don't look very nice. I mean, the whole point of the beauty of European cathedrals is that the king had all the money, and he would use his money to have the finest craftsmen and artists, and make the church a beautiful, impressive building to be in awe of God. So obviously, these cathedrals are built by the richest person in the kingdom, the king himself. So you would expect beautiful buildings at the very least, and it wouldn't be quite fair to compare the places of religious worship in America built by immigrants, and I just don't think it's quite fair to expect them to look nice. So you really should be comparing ancient mosques in Iran or Turkey, and I don't think you visited those countries. I don't know the answer to people in Moscow. How you the mosque carpets? Well, I'm glad you've been to a mosque, but anyway, you'll know that the mosque carpets have a particular design in order to, tell worshippers which place to face and position themselves. So there would be a certain kind of design, usually in rectangles, I suppose, to show people, to give people their personal space when praying. But if you haven't been to Turkey or Iran, I don't think it's quite fair to say that Christian architecture is superior to Islamic architecture. And that's not even the point. We are talking about religion in the form of scripture, and scripture in the form of books containing rules set by God. And my point is that Christianity has failed. It failed Rome. It failed the absolute monarchs of Europe. And this, for some reason, has not been acknowledged by any Western historian, probably because maybe they were told to shut up. I think saying this would be a problem if the monarch were in charge, or if there were anybody who wants the monarch to be in charge. And I think the British monarchy is politically very useful to America because of the territory it controls, such as Canada, such as Australia, which would be indispensable in being places where the American Navy can stop at. So Australia is of very significant geopolitical importance to America. And I think for purely geopolitical reasons, America would want the British monarchy to continue in order to give, to put these territories under the control of America. And the current Australian Prime Minister has probably had his arm twisted into promising that he will not conduct a referendum on Australia becoming an independent republic, or else probably be shot or something by the CIA, something like that. So that is a problem. Kumid asks, is it acceptable to conquer people as long as we give them pretty mosaics and a bath afterwards? That's a good one. Well, whether it's acceptable or not, it does happen. And we can't stop people from acquiring empire. I mean, we really can't. I mean, I guess the most we can do is stop them acquiring empire at our expense. But there are also advantages to empire in that you have ease of transport and ease of communication, and the reason that the world can communicate so easily with each other, in real time on social media is can be attributed to the Anglo-Saxon Empire. So it's not all bad. So, and all I'm proposing is that the Anglo-Saxon Empire adopts secular Quranism to be a better run Anglo-Saxon Empire. I just don't see what the problem is. Why can't somebody, some public intellectual of the Anglo-Saxon Empire, discuss this with me? Or if they're too scared to discuss it with me, they can discuss it with other, paid and officially approved Western public intellectuals. I don't mind. I'm not fussy. But I think my ideas should be discussed. We already know the Persians, the Indians, and the Chinese are talking about us like, what's the matter with them? What can we do to make them behave better? We can't upset them too much because they might just blow themselves up and the whole world with it. And, it's like being stuck in a small room with a mad dog in it. Zaid Zainab Mosque. Now, where is that? I'll have a look at a few Google pictures. So which Middle Eastern country is it? It's in Damascus, is it? Yeah, it doesn't look too good, does it? Do we know when it was built? I'm looking at the town. Let me try again. Zainab Mosque. Well, I don't know what country it's in. So I don't know. Okay, I mean, I'm not saying all mosques are pretty anyway. Some of them are cheap and cheerful. Or cheap architecture will always be cheap and nasty. In Cairo, all right. Yeah, I guess it's done in the minaret style. Um, I mean, is it even a particularly old mosque? Okay, it was completed in the 1500s. I think the really beautiful ones are in Iran, because Iran is, well, it's an ancient civilization. So I guess it was ancient before it became Muslim. So I guess they just have better craftsmen to build their mosques, and that's why you get the Sunni mosques are really not much cop unless you go to um, Turkey, which used to be the Ottoman Empire. I mean, you really have to take into account um, the region, the country, and whatever, and of course their history. I mean, if you're just nomadic desert tribes, architecture is not going to be your best skill. But the point is, it's the rules, and I mean, if you're going to adopt the by their fruits shall you know them attitude, you can say, oh, they're so useless, these Muslims. They, look at their shithole countries, but you would have to look at the borders drawn in the Middle East to know that they are a bit different compared to the borders in other parts of the world. And the reason why they've been drawn in that way is to create maximum conflict by the leaving Western powers who never really left. And the Sykes-Picot Agreement, the borders are intended to be to cause conflict, and to discourage Pan-African unity. So that's something to understand. You can imagine if what used to be your bathroom, you now have to share with your neighbour. What used to be your garden, you have to also share with your neighbour. So there's going to be problems if people draw property boundaries in a way to make you suffer maximum conflict with your neighbor. And this was precisely what the Europeans did to the Africans. They could have negotiated with each other to vary um, the boundaries and whatever, but they chose not to do that. I know Gaddafi was going to be the Pan-African leader, and he was invaded and assassinated by the Western powers. Uh, so you're going to say, yes, the most powerful people have the right to go around behaving like a gangster, and whether or not they have the right, they do so anyway. But when they do that, they also damage themselves and their reputations. because obviously you're not going to trust a gangster if, you know, but you would trust somebody who you know to be upright and, you know, a fair person. I mean, you trust them with your money, your daughter, your, you know, important documents, etc. So behaving badly, in the end, comes back up to bite you on the bum, as Westerners are beginning to see. So if they were looking, they could look at, you know, all the international conferences about oh yes, about civilizational states and whatever. That's what they're talking about in their international conferences in China and in Russia. A civilization state is a country that aims to represent not just a historical territory, an ethno-linguistic group or body of governments, but a unique civilization in its own right. So it would be the land empires. So what is the opposite of civilizational states? Let me have a look. It'll be thalassocracies, which are marine empires. But the thing is, they are nation states. That's the one. The opposite of civilizational states is nation states. But I think it's a false distinction. I mean, what is a nation state but a okay? A nation state is a piece of territory run by a government with people in it, and a civilizational state, I guess they think of themselves as older land empires. But I think that the best way of distinguishing one from the other is sea empires. Sea empires and land empires behave in a different way for, you know, geopolitical reasons. So you will get marine empires rising quickly and doing really well, and then disappearing quickly. So Rome and Carthage would be a good example of a land and sea empire. So the land empire slowly grows and is more stable and is not so easily lost. So if you think of nation states as or marine empires or thalassocracies as a kind of running on a margin, you know, you only partly pay for something and you own the whole of it, but you know, you will keep getting your margin calls. So Kumit is asking me why, you know, you know, Egypt doesn't have high standards of hygiene. I guess it's not a Western country, and maybe it doesn't have that much money. Okay, well, we all know Egypt is very, very old and older even than the Jews. So, but we also know that Egypt is also of strategic importance to the West, particularly marine empires, because the Suez Canal is you know, very important because, you know, all the it's a trade route. Yes, people use the Suez Canal to avoid having to take the long way around. Now, what should I call this stream as I'm about to end it? So well, I started off, okay, empire. I'm going to talk empire, good or bad. Yeah, so before I go, I'm going to tell you about this two Chinese people who went ape when I said, well, China's an empire, and obviously it was, but they behaved as if I'd accused them of being pedophiles or something, and one of them blocked me. And I thought, what exactly is your problem? China has been, some might call it a nation state, just because it's a distinct piece of territory with distinct peoples and a language, and it has more or less remained intact, for millennia, and Chinese identity is pretty distinct. As far as non-Chinese people are concerned, they'll recognize, kung fu movies and chopsticks and Chinese takeaways and that kind of thing. So people will have all sorts of correct or incorrect ideas about China, but it's got a very distinct identity and is. Or people think they know. Maybe they don't really know, but they think they know. So you could say that China has a very distinctive identity, and why it has such a distinct identity is because I guess Westerners think about it. They like Chinese food. They like Chinese porcelain. They like Chinese paintings and all kinds of things. So that's why this mutual interaction reaffirms each other's identity. And whether China likes it or not, it is an empire. And whether the West is right to fear China is well, in a way, the West is logical to fear China because it's become very powerful because it's properly run by rational leaders under a rational political system, and the West is becoming increasingly irrational. And insecure, while China is becoming increasingly confident and getting more friends just by being reasonable and not wanting to tell people what to do. And I think all these conferences currently being held is to get the West to listen in on what other people are saying about it, and hopefully take the hint and correct themselves. But I'm saying the West is irrational. It's like a rabid dog in the same room with you, and we don't really quite know how to talk to it in case it just goes crazy and leaps at your throat. So what they should be doing is tell it a story that the crazy stupid dog is capable of understanding, and that will be probably the subject of my next monologue.